What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. And the 2026 NFL Draft Combine is officially here, and that means we're going to talk about winners and losers. Now, previously, I would jumble all of these into one mega video at the end of the weekend, and we talk about it. But we're going to split this up because I want to spend more time on each position group throughout the week. So today, we're going to talk about the defensive linemen and the linebackers who were the testers today. There is a lot to really dive into today, so I'm really excited. But a little bit of housekeeping here. If you guys want more NFL draft content, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Things are really starting to heat up. We're going to finish the 7-round team mock drafts. We got some free agency stuff coming. And if you want even more draft content, be sure to hit the pinned comment below. That will take you to my Patreon, where for $5 a month or a one-time purchase of $20, you guys can get access to my full draft guide with over 400 evals, scouting reports. All of these testing numbers will be going into that spreadsheet here as soon as I finish recording this. So if you guys want more from me, be sure to hit the link in the pinned comment. I've got so much going to Patreon in the coming weeks. All right, so we're going to start this conversation off with the defensive tackles, and we're going to go based off the PFF consensus big board. Peter Woods didn't do any of the testing, but quietly, I think, was one of the bigger losers of the day because he's really fighting for that top defensive tackle spot still. Caleb Banks tested really well. Lee Hunter performed. We'll get to his numbers in a little bit, but Peter Woods weighed in at 6'2.5", 298 pounds, but the arm length was brutal. 31 and an eighth inch arms, 9 and an eighth inch hands, both second percentile and seventh percentile, and a fifth percentile in wingspan at 76 and 3/8. Pretty concerning measurements from a guy that he was hyped up to be one of the best players in this class. He's been slipping down boards, and I think he has been leapfrogged by a couple of the other guys. I thought the measurements were really concerning. Caleb Banks, on the other hand, he kind of had the opposite thing happen, where I think Caleb Banks was one of the biggest winners of the day. He might have locked up the number one defensive tackle in this draft class because we knew this guy was going to measure in really, really well. And he did just that. 6'6", 327 pounds, 35-inch arms, which is 93rd percentile, 10 and 7/8 inch hands, 97th percentile, and 85 and 3/4 inch wingspan, that is 100th percentile. He is an absolute freak athlete who ran really well for his size. Ran a 5.04 with a 1.76 10-yard split. The vertical jump at 32 inches, and then a 114-inch broad jump for a guy at his size. This is a really, really impressive athlete. I think we have known that about Caleb Banks. We just didn't get to see it on full display. He didn't do the shuttle or the three-cone. Banks has a chance to be the number one defensive tackle taken out of this class, and I think that is something that we weren't talking about earlier this season because Banks didn't play a lot, but really, really interesting. Caleb Banks with a really strong day. Caden McDonald didn't do too much, didn't test, didn't do any of that, weighed in and didn't really surprise many people. Came in with shorter arms as well, 32.25 inch arms, had a little bit better measurements, but 326. I can live with shorter arms if you're going to be a nose tackle. As for like Peter Woods, for example, I think that's a 3-tech, and I think he's going to need his length to win at the next level. So, Caden McDonald didn't really do too much for me. Lee Hunter, on the other hand, I'm a big Lee Hunter fan, and I do think I'm going to have a back and forth between my number one defensive tackle, between Lee Hunter and between Caleb Banks. He weighed in, Lee Hunter, at 6'3.5", 318 pounds, really good numbers, 33.25 inch arms, 9.25 inch hands, which are a little bit small, just 9th percentile, had a good wingspan as well. Lee Hunter, I don't think is this transcendent athlete, ran a 5.18, not a super impressive time. The jumps weren't great. I'm not going to let this affect the evaluation too much. I think his lateral quickness were really good. I think he would have tested well in the three-cone. Hunter's a guy that is a little bit of an older prospect. Yes, I get that. Didn't weigh in, have the greatest numbers in the world. I'm not too concerned about it with Lee Hunter. Christian Miller, another guy that didn't do any of the on-field testing, weighed in at the combine, had pretty good numbers, 33-inch arms you like to see, 10-inch hands, nice wingspan, 321 pounds. a player that I'm really intrigued to see kind of what he runs. I think his over-under was like 4.89, which I thought was pretty ridiculous, to be completely honest. But Christian Miller, good player, didn't do too much to really help or hurt his stock, in my opinion. Dante Corleone, some tough measurements for him. He is just really small. We kind of knew that about Corleone. Came in at 6'1", 340, which is a really good number. Shorter arms at nearly 32 inches, just 7th percentile. Another guy that didn't do any of the on-field testing. But if you watched Dante Corleone, you knew he was a shorter defensive tackle with shorter arms. Nothing to really write home about there. Dominique Orange, very similar story. A guy that didn't do any on-field testing, which is unfortunate. I didn't think he had the greatest season in the world, but good weight, good arm length, a little bit shorter in terms of his height, which, again, I think we kind of knew was going to be the case with him. But he comes in with some solid measurements across the board. Darrell Jackson from Florida State is a really fun player. We knew because of the Shrine Bowl numbers that this guy was going to have absolutely freakish size measurements. He came in at that 6'5.5", 315, 34 and 3/4 inch arms, 11-inch hands. Another guy that didn't do any on-field testing, but I think his size is going to be a really big factor in his scouting report. Skylar Gill-Howard, a little bit unfortunate that he didn't get to or didn't compete in any of the on-field testing, because I think there's a really explosive athlete. Just doesn't have the size, so it's going to be really hard. Just 1st percentile arm length, 4th percentile in height. He is a smaller guy. There's no doubt about it. I would have liked to see him do some on-field testing. Tim Keenan, another guy with really bad measurements. 8 and 5/8 inch hands, really poor. 30.5 inch arms, 327. Good weight, 4th percentile in height. Keenan is a guy that didn't really have a super productive season. I still have him sitting right outside my top 100. Probably going to move him down the board. Just not a great show from him in terms of the testing numbers. Ran a 5.31, just a 5th percentile. Not a super explosive or great athlete, and a guy that I just don't really know if he's going to have the size. So we'll kind of see what it looks like, but not a great day from Tim Keenan. Chris McClellan, solid day. 64th percentile. I need to go back and watch Chris McClellan. Not a guy that I was high on in the summer. Haven't gone back to his tape, but a guy who ran a decent 40 for his size at 313. A guy that I think is shows some nice explosiveness from time to time. So McClellan is a guy that I'm definitely going to go back in, watch the tape, see if I missed something, because I didn't really see much of an athlete, but a guy that's got good size, a guy that's pretty strong. Nice showing from Chris McClellan. Grayson Halton was one of the big winners of the day. Because of the Senior Bowl numbers, we knew he wasn't going to test out super well. 10-inch hands, nice hand size, 26th percentile in height, 58th percentile in weight, 2nd percentile in arm length. So it was really going to be about the testing numbers. He ran a 4.82, which is a really, really solid number for a defensive tackle with a 1.7 10-yard split. I really like that time from him. And then the explosiveness, 90th percentile in his vertical jump. Grayson Halton, he is undersized, but gosh, he flashes really high-end explosiveness. He's good with his hands. Grayson Halton is a guy that's going to go in the top 100 because of these numbers. I think this backs up what he has shown on tape. Also had a pretty good shuttle at 4.79. So you love to see this from Grayson Halton. Went out there, put on a nice show, good performance from Halton. Albert Regis is another player very similar to Chris McClellan that I was not very high on in the summer. A lot of people seem to really like him. Probably going to be more of a nose tackle, shorter, but 295. I'm very curious to see how he performs. Ran a 4.88 with a 1.72 split, and another guy that had a pretty good vertical jump at 34 inches, had a broad jump. Another guy I'm going to go back and really look at the tape a little bit more, because I saw him as more of a nose tackle coming into the year. He coming in at 295. Probably could be a 3-tech. So very interesting stuff from Albert Regis. Caleb Proctor is another massive winner in my eyes. One of my favorite guys in this class who isn't getting enough talk because he is from FCS level. 74 inches in height, 291. 33-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. Not a very physical or big player. but a 4.79 40-yard dash and a 1.69 split. Very similar to Grayson Halton. This is a guy that, yes, he is an undersized defensive tackle. He is a guy that I think is going to make a difference, though, because he's so explosive. He reminds me a little bit of Milton Williams when he was coming out of Louisiana Tech. Good numbers at 33-inch vertical, 113 broad there, and then a 4.71 shuttle. So a guy that's really explosive. I think the change of direction is there, and I think he's got the measurement that could scare teams away. I don't know if he's going to go in day 2, but as an early day 3 guy, keep an eye out for Caleb Proctor. I absolutely love him as a potential steal on day 3. Demonte Capehart, another guy that had a really good performance, was the better of the 2 Clemson defensive tackles today. There's really no way around it. Came in with 84th percentile in height, 85th in weight, 66th percentile in length, good hands, so everything checks out there. And he ran a 4.85 at his size with a 1.72 split. This is a guy that is probably going to be more of a run stuffer. There's not a whole lot of a pass rushing bag in his game, but pretty explosive numbers from him. Had some good jumps as well, 33.5-inch vert, which is 70th percentile for the position. Some pretty good numbers here from Demonte Capehart, a guy that I think a lot of people forgot about. A lot of people thought he might go in that top 100 range. He didn't have a great season this year, as many of the Clemson players did not. But Capehart is a guy that I still think has a chance to go on that day 3 range, and a nice performance from him at the Combine today. Xavier Harris is a really popular player. He's very tall. He's 330 pounds, got long arms, big hands. Didn't do any of the on-field testing. I'm not a big fan of Xavier Harris. We knew the measurements were going to be good. His listed size at Ole Miss was 6'8", 330. I'm not too concerned about his numbers. This is a 6'8" type of, came in exactly what we thought he was going to. Doesn't really change my opinion on him. Zane Durant at 6'1", 290, 31 7/8. Another guy that's just really, really small, but what I think is going to get people with Zane Durant is he had one of the best 40 times for his size at defensive tackle, running a 4.75 with a 1.66 split. That's going to really catch the attention of NFL scouts. And Zane Durant, where do I have him? He's my number 14 defensive tackle in the class. He is so explosive. We knew that was in his game. He's more of a 3-tech pass rusher type. And he performed there. He showed the explosiveness, 33.5-inch vertical in there as well. Some good numbers from Zane Durant. I still think he's probably a day 3 type of a guy, but it's nice to see the numbers back up. The size, I just think, at that small, at 290 with those short arms, it's going to be a tough sell for him at the next level. Devon Eastern had another pretty good day. 6'5", 315, 34-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Another guy that only did some of the explosive numbers. Eastern's another guy who's probably going to fall as I would say more of a run defender, was just not a super great pass rusher, but the explosive numbers aren't really anything to write home about. Probably a late day 3 type of guy. Rayshawn Benny, another guy who had some size concerns, came in at 6'3", 298, 33 3/8-inch arms, and didn't do any of the on-field testing, which I'm a little disappointed that Benny didn't, because you saw guys like Halton and Durant and Proctor all have really good days. Benny falls into that same cluster of prospects, and I think out of those guys, I would probably have him the lowest right now. I wanted to see kind of what he ran. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that. Brandon Cleveland, 6'3", 307, 32 3/8. Didn't do too much on the field, a 5.12. Not a very explosive athlete. I know he's got some fans. I've got like a 5th round grade on him. Good upper body strength, solid in run defense, just not much of an athlete. He's pretty stiff, and that's kind of what we saw today. Gary Smith out of UCLA, 6'1", 319, 32.5-inch arms, 9 3/4-inch hands. Didn't do any of the running drills, had a 28-inch vertical, not a great number from him. I really like Gary Smith, one of my favorite noses in this class, and I think that's the size is perfectly good for an NFL nose tackle. Not really much more to say. Same thing with Cameron Ball. This is a 6'4", 310, really good size for the nose tackle position. Just not a guy that's really explosive. 32-inch vertical, pretty solid number for him. 4.76 shuttle. I don't see a lot of elite explosiveness from him, but a guy that has some good size. Dominic Williams, 6'2", 305, 33 and an eighth, 10-inch hands. Didn't do any of the on-field testing. Another guy who I have where do I have him? I have a UDFA grade on him. Not really much to write home about, especially without the testing. Nick Barrett is a player I do want to talk about a little bit because I haven't talked about him yet on this channel. I really, really like Nick Barrett. 6'3", 312, 33 and 3/8 inch arms, 10-inch hands. He is a really big dude, and a 1-7 split at that size I will live with. 55th percentile, not bad whatsoever. Not the most explosive guy in the world. That's not what you're really going to get from a guy like Nick Barrett. But he is a guy that I think has some good swipes. He's got a good motor. He takes up a lot of space. Keep your eye on Nick Barrett as like an early day 3 type of guy. I think he's going to continue to shoot up boards. I thought he had a pretty good day. Bryson Eason, another player that I'm not the biggest fan of. 6'2", 323, shorter arms at 33 and an eighth, 10-inch hands. Ran a 5.09 with a 1.78 split. There's just a lot of issues on Bryson Eason's tape where I just feel that he's out of control a lot. There's not a lot of power. He lunges, and I just didn't see a whole lot from him there. Decent athlete, ran pretty well. The shuttle, the change of direction, not great. Not a great day from Bryson Eason, but David Gusta, another player that I really, really like. 6'2", 308, 31 and an eighth inch arms, just second percentile, but a really explosive player. 4.88, 1.68 split. I'll live with that. 32-inch vertical, good number there. Gusta's a guy that I have not seen get talked about enough. I think that this is a player that could get into that 5th round range because he is a really explosive guy. He's got some pass rushing traits. I'm intrigued by Gusta, and I thought he had a pretty strong showing. Bobby Jamison Travis, 6'3", 328. Not a guy. He's on my watch list right now. Came in with some solid measurements, though. You like to see 79th percentile, 94th percentile. Going to have to get into his tape a little bit more. And then Tyler Onyedem is our last defensive tackle. 6'3", 292, 34 and an eighth inch hands. Had some nice jumps. 32-inch vert, 11.1 on the broad. So not bad whatsoever. A player that transferred from Iowa State, some flashes there. But overall, for the defensive tackle group, I would say the big winner of the day to me was probably Grayson Halton and Caleb Proctor. I think both of those guys looked really good. DeMonte Capehart. And as for the losers of the day, Tim Keenan and Peter Woods. Let's move on to the edge rushers. All right, going straight into the edge rushers, Ruben Bain. There's going to be a lot of conversation about this. I'll do a full video on it. Very short arms, very concerning to a lot of people. I was more concerned about the weight. Came in at 263, about 15 pounds lighter. We knew he was smaller. We knew he had shorter arms. None of this should be a surprise. David Bailey, 6'4", 251. I'm very intrigued about. I now think there is a conversation. I've had Bain as my number 1 player in the draft, really the whole cycle. I don't anymore. We'll talk about that player in a little bit. Bailey, 33 and 3/4 inch arms, 6'4", 10 and an eighth inch hands, but it's the testing numbers. I mean, the guy ran a 4.51, 99th percentile, a 1.62 split, 87th percentile, 35-inch vert, 12.9 on the broad. This is a guy that is so explosive. He's super athletic, and we knew that on tape. This just backs it up. And another guy that also just has everything working for him. Bailey and Bain couldn't be more different from as prospects, but there's a conversation. If you're at 2 with the Jets, would you rather have Bailey or Bain? Where I think you're getting I feel like there is probably a better chance Bailey works out in the league than Bain simply based off measurements. He had an incredible day, one of the biggest winners of the afternoon. Cassius Howell, 30 and an eighth inch arms. I mean, 0th percentile with 74 and an eighth inch wingspan. That's awful. Really, really bad numbers from him. And I knew he was going to have short arms. Ran a 4.6, 1.59 split. Really good numbers from him there. And we saw the explosiveness. All of that we knew about Cassius Howell. The measurements were somehow worse than expected. I'm very curious how people around the league are going to view Cassius Howell because of the lack of size. Because 30 and an eighth inch arms would be very unprecedented. And he is a guy that I'm very curious. He's a player that I've definitely got circled as a guy to watch in April. Keldrick Folk didn't do any of the on-field testing, just did some of the jumps, 35-inch vertical, 11.6 on the broad. Look, he's a really solid athlete. The explosiveness is there, and he's got great size. He's 6'6", he's 276, has big arm, like long arms, good wingspan. There's a lot to like about Keldrick Folk. Very curious what he runs at his pro day. I am not selling my Keldrick Folk stock. I know he had a down year, but there are just very few players that are built like this that move the way Keldrick Folk does. I'm still on the Keldrick Folk hype train. Maybe not in the top 20, but certainly a guy I would be looking at in that 20 to 32 range. I still think he's a first rounder. TJ Parker, solid day from him. Shorter arms again, 31 and 5/8 inch arms, really small hands at 8 and 7/8, but 6'4", 263. I think that will work for you. Ran a 4.68, pretty good time for his size. Nice split, 34-inch vertical, 12 foot on the broad, and he didn't do the shuttle or the three cone. He's a really explosive guy on tape. He's a guy that wins with power. I don't see a lot of speed wins from him. He is a guy that I think the arm length might matter a little bit because his number one move is that bull rush. And if you don't have the length to consistently win with the bull rush, I'm going to push back on you. TJ Parker, the lack of length is concerning to me. I'm very curious how the league is going to look at TJ Parker. Akeem Mesidor, 6'3", 259. 32 and an eighth inch arms, shorter again, but 78 and 3/4 inch wingspan. Didn't do any of the on-field testing, but a guy that is getting a lot of draft hype. Shorter arms than I think I was expecting, but there are a lot of things to really like about his game. Let's see if he can continue to show that he can be a consistent one-on-one pass rusher. R. Mason Thomas, the big question with him was also going to be the size. Came in at 6'2", 241, 31 and 5/8 inch arms. Didn't really answer a lot of the questions. Shorter arms, a lot of concerns there, but still ran well. 4.67, 1.63 split. Didn't jump, didn't do the shuttle or the three cone. But this is another guy. I think there is a cluster of rushers in this class between like your Cassius Howells, Akeem Mesidors, R. Mason Thomas, like all of these guys that had a lot of questions from me that I wanted answers to in terms of the measurements and the athleticism. And all of them had not great measurements. Thomas is going to be fun to like monitor. I think he's going to get a lot of buzz potentially over Cassius Howell because you could live with that arm length a little bit more than what you had with Howell. Gabe Akis is another player I really like. 6'4", 260. Didn't really hear a whole lot from him today because he didn't do any of the on-field stuff, but we kind of knew the measurements he had from the Senior Bowl. Zion Young, very similar sort of situation. 6'6", 262, 33-inch arms. We knew that with him. Another guy that didn't do any on-field testing, but I'm buying the Zion Young hype. I love this frame as a 4'3" defensive end. LT Overton, 6'3", 274, decent arms at 33 and a quarter, 10 and 5/8 inch hands. Ran a 4.87. I'm just not there. I just don't think LT Overton is an explosive enough player, a guy that I think is going to win consistently as a pass rusher. And I think the numbers kind of show that. The 10-yard split, 51st percentile, not where I'd like it to be for a guy that was really hyped up coming into the year. I wouldn't take. He's not on my personal top 100. I just wouldn't make that pick. Romello Height, very similar. 6'3", 239. He is smaller in that same sort of deal. Howell, Thomas, Height. I think all of these guys are going to be compared with one another. And he came out and ran a 4.64 with a 1.64 split, 39-inch vertical jump, which is 97th percentile. There was some conversation on if Romello Height is more explosive than David Bailey. There is a case to be made. I think Bailey's got more speed, but that first step explosiveness is there, and I think Romello Height's going to be able to weaponize that. He had a really solid day as well, just really explosive, really fast. Shorter arms, undersized, probably a second round guy, but I think this is a guy that can get you production at the next level. Derek Moore, 6'4", 255. We knew what his measurements were going to be because of the Senior Bowl. Didn't do any on-field testing. Nothing's really changed since then. Joshua Josephs, 6'3", 242. Longer arms at 34 and a quarter. I like to see that. And another guy that didn't do any of the testing. So we're going to have to wait to see. But I like the arm length. Another guy that's kind of in that similar tier. I need to go back and watch his tape from this past season. But a lot of people really like Joshua Josephs. Similar to James Pierce, maybe a step below what Pierce was at Tennessee, but nice performance or good measurements here from Josephs. Anthony Lucas at 6'6", 256. I really love this guy's frame. I think there's a lot to build off of. Didn't do any of the on-field stuff, didn't do any of the drills, but really good size. Somebody's going to talk themselves into him as a 4-3 defensive end, a 3-4 base defensive end, because I do think he's got the size to really hold up. Long arms, big hands, and he plays like it as well. Kieran Crawford at 6'4", 253, 32-inch arms, 9-inch hands. The measurements weren't great, but a player that I still really like. I knew he was going to be a smaller rusher, probably a DPR, but I love the way this guy moves. It's a shame he didn't test. I think he would have challenged for one of the top times on the 40. But nice from Kieran Crawford. 6'6", 256 on denied Dennis Sutton. Penn State always has these guys, don't they? The guys that just shoot up draft boards because they're freakish athletes. Sutton is one of them. And look, great numbers from him. Ran well at a 4.64 with a 1.64 split. Showed explosiveness at both the broad and the vertical jump. Denied Dennis Sutton made himself some money today because I think a lot of people forgot about him because Penn State was not good this year. I still think he's a second to a third round guy. And I think in that cluster, somebody's going to take him and get a nice player. So a good performance from Denied Dennis Sutton definitely boosted his draft stock and a big winner. Tyreek Sapp, we knew he was a bigger edge rusher, didn't do any on-field stuff. I mean, I don't really know what to make of Tyreek Sapp. 9.5-inch hands, 32-inch arms at 6'2", 273. He should probably add on 15 more pounds and convert to defensive tackle is kind of what I think about Tyreek Sapp. Jyshawn Barham, 6'4", 240. Nice arm length at 34 and an eighth. 4.65, 40. I mean, another guy. He converted from linebacker to edge rusher. I need to look at more of his edge rushing stuff from this past season because I have him scouted as a linebacker. Definitely a guy that obviously is competing with the edge rushers. Some good measurements from him and a player that I'm intrigued to kind of see to get into the tape on. Ndame Tucker, another player that I think had some question marks coming into the day. Kind of a late bloomer, was on the Senior Bowl roster. Didn't have great measurements at all. 6'2", 247, 31 3/8. Ran a 4.73. Not the greatest day from Ndame Tucker. I still like him as an early fourth round guy. Just not a really powerful guy, and I think a lot of your power comes from your explosion. I didn't see a lot of that. A nice split from him, but definitely a player I'm going to have to go back and reevaluate. Quintavious Hutchins, another really, really small edge rusher at 6'3", 233. Ran a 4.74 with a 1.73 split. I'm not the biggest on him. Where do I have him? I've got him as like a fifth, like a late day 3 type of guy, and we just didn't really see any numbers. 37-inch vertical, solid from him, but if you're this small and this is your explosiveness, it's going to be hard for me to buy in. Max Llewellyn, another interesting player at 6'6", 258, 4.81 with a 1.67 10-yard split. Had some decent jumps. Llewellyn is a player I've also never really bought the hype on. I think he's a mid-day 3 type of guy. And you kind of see it with the way he's pushed off the ball, not really strong in his lower half. And I think we kind of saw that from the vertical numbers. Just kind of average across the board. Nothing that really is jumping out. Malachi Lawrence is the player I do want to highlight, though. A lot of people thought he was going to have 35-inch arms. It didn't end up happening. We kind of knew that from the Shrine Bowl. He's just a freak. I mean, a 98th percentile 40, 95th percentile split. Really good vertical as well at 40-inch. Had a 13-foot broad jump. This is a player that I think is going to challenge top 50. I really do. I've been saying it for months on my team mock drafts. This is a guy that has all of the makings of being a stud edge rusher. He's my number 10 edge rusher in the class. I'm probably going to jump him up ahead of the guy like R. Mason Thomas because I really love the size, the length, and the explosiveness. Currently on my big board, which you guys can get on my Patreon, he's number 58. He's a really good player and a guy that I think has a real chance to go top 50 in this draft. George Gums is another player that I thought had a really good day. 6'4", 245, but showed some good explosiveness. 4.66. The split, not great. Neither are the broad jump and the vert. He had a really good vert at 41, 12-1 on the broad. George Gums is a player that not a lot of people have talked about, but if you want a good run defending edge rusher, I think you're getting that with George Gums. Really good length, good at dropping back into coverage, gets off of blocks well, obviously has some explosiveness. George Gums had a really good day and a player that not a lot of people I think are really talking about in this class. Vincent Anthony, 6'6", 258, more of a day 3 type of edge rusher, ran okay, pretty average numbers across the board from him. Nothing that really stood out. Patrick Payton, good arm length. Really tough season this past year at LSU. We didn't get to see him do any of the on-field testing. I bet you he runs pretty well, but some decent numbers from Patrick Payton. Logan Fano, 6'5", 257. Another player that I think he's probably a late day 3 type of guy. Average measurements, average athleticism. Mason Reiger, I'm intrigued by. Shorter arms at 32 and 5/8. He's 6'5", he's 251. He's explosive though. 161, 10-yard split. Really, really good. He plays like it. He gets off the line of scrimmage. Really explosive. Health is going to be the concern with him, but the explosive numbers are absolutely there. I think the change of direction is good. Mason Reiger is a player to keep your eye on in this draft process. Jack Pyburn, I love Jack Pyburn, similar to George Gums as that run-setting edge, but 30 and 7/8 inch arms, it's tough. Didn't do any on-field stuff. He's not a great athlete, and I think he's probably going to fall down draft boards because of it. Jackie Marshall, great size, 6'3", 293, 4.88. I think Jackie Marshall's a defensive tackle. I don't know why Baylor has him listed as an edge. Feels like a defensive tackle. 4.68 shuttle. Not terrible. Nothing to write home about there. Marvin Jones Jr., I really like the guy's physical traits. 6'5", long arms, good hands, runs well. He's explosive. The guy just does not have great tape. Another guy that's probably a day 3 developmental type of project. 6'5", 260, 32-inch arms with Aiden Hubbard. He didn't test. Nothing to write home about. Another day 3 guy. Caden Curry, 6'3", 257. A lot smaller than I was expecting. Another guy that didn't test at all. Najee Kelly had a nice day. 35 and an 1/8 inch arms. Big hands. He's got great size for his position. Ran pretty well. 4.88, 1.7 split. Showed some explosiveness. Nice developmental athlete off the edge. Wesley Williams is the last guy we're going to talk about here off the edge. Nothing to really write home about measurement-wise. Did not show any good athleticism. Decent vertical at 35.5, but Wesley Williams is just like your baseline edge rusher. You might take him. He's an okay run defender, an okay pass rusher, okay athlete. Nothing insane. Let's talk about the linebackers now. So let's talk about Arvell Reese, who they've got listed as an edge rusher here on the NFL site. Came in at 6'4", 241, 32.5-inch arms. Shorter for an edge rusher. Good size for an off-ball linebacker, which I'm in the camp. I think Arvell Reese is a linebacker, but he ran really well. A 4.46 with a 1.58 split. I mean, these guys are both aliens. We'll talk about Sonny Styles here in a second. I mean, there's not really much more you could ask for from Arvell Reese in terms of the athleticism. We know how productive he was. He's in play at number 2 in this class. He absolutely is. Had a really strong showing. The arm length is really the only question mark in usage, but really good player. All right, so we got to change this up a little bit because the other tracker has not updated the times at the time of recording this. But Sonny Styles, I mean, we'll just talk about Sonny Styles altogether. Sonny Styles had a 4.46 on the 40-yard dash. On his vertical, he had a 43.5. On his broad jump, he had an 11.2. Sonny Styles just had one of the greatest combine performances of all time, and he has solidified himself on my board as my number one player. I've had him at number two really for the last 2 months. He has solidified himself as the best player in this class, in my opinion. He checks every single box. He's a freak athlete. Came in at 6'5", 245, long arms. I mean, what more could you ask from Sonny Styles? Unbelievable showing from Styles in every drill. He's explosive. He's fast. He can cover. He can play downhill. He's strong. Perfect. I don't want to say he's a perfect prospect because there are a couple of areas you could nitpick. He's as close to a perfect linebacker as I think we'll ever see. Sonny Styles, unbelievable day. Caleb Elarms-Orr, though, a 4.47 40. I had some concerns coming into the day about what his 40 was going to look like. I thought he had good, not great speed. Good time there. Anthony Hill, very similar. I think there were questions about his stiffness. He performed pretty well. Kyle Lewis and Nnamdi Obiezor, both with a 4.53 40 time. Lewis is a guy that I really am intrigued by. I think he might play in the slot because he's fast, he's quick, he's shifty. Really intrigued by that. You've got a couple of these guys like Sherrar, Jefferson, Kelly. Good times. The two I really want to highlight here are Jacob Rodriguez and Jake Galday. Jacob Rodriguez at a 4.57 is excellent. There were so many concerns about what his 40 time was going to be. Was he going to test fast? Jacob Rodriguez tested perfectly fine for the position, and because of it, I think he's locked up a top 50. I think he should go in the top 50. There's not a lot of weaknesses in Rodriguez's game other than his measurements, which is still around like 6'1", 230, and the speed. But this is adequate speed for an NFL linebacker. And then Jake Galday, little disappointed by him. Didn't run as well as I was hoping that he was going to. A 4.63 or 4.62. It's not a bad time, but it's not what I was expecting because there's a lot of speed on his tape. We just didn't get to see that from Jake Galday. So a little bit of a disappointment there from him. Let's talk a little bit about the splits. I mean, Obiezor, pretty similar numbers and kind of in a similar order. Galday, a lot more explosive than he is fast at a 1.6 flat. Good time again. Sonny Styles tied for the top. Anthony Hill, pretty good day from him as well. The vertical jump, we already talked about Sonny Styles, but some good numbers from Caleb Elarms-Orr again. 40-inch vertical. Kyle Lewis with 39.5, 39 from Galday. Kind of backs up what I was just saying. More explosive than fast, I think, with Jake Galday. We saw that. Good times from Jacob Rodriguez at 38.5. Carson Sherrar out of Iowa tested pretty well. Keyshawn Elliott at a 38. Didn't run. Keyshawn Elliott's a pretty explosive player, though. I thought he looked pretty good. Anthony Hill at a 37-inch on the vertical. And then a lot of these day three type of guys, Jack Kelly, Obiezor, Jimmy Rolder, Owen Heineke. Heineke's a player that I've seen getting a lot of buzz. He's undersized, and I don't think he's super explosive. Just a 34.5-inch vertical. As for the broad jump, surprise, surprise, Sonny Styles is at the top. But again, similar names, Galday, Elliott, Lewis. I think all three of those guys. Galday didn't run the best time in the world, but jumped really well, had a good split. Elliott had jumped really well in both of his. Kyle Lewis, a really, really strong day. He's going to go in the top 75 of this draft. You see some good numbers from Anthony Hill, Justin Jefferson, Kelly. Elarms-Orr a little bit worse on the broad jump. Same with Sherrar and Rodriguez. And then down here at the bottom again, Heineke, Obiezor, Rolder. Just more of, I think, your day three developmental type of linebackers. Nothing really there physically, but they're pretty smart players as well. Three cone, what do we see? Jacob Rodriguez, 6'9". I like that number from him. That's nice. Sonny Styles at a 7.09. I'm not too worried about that. Torian York at a 7.32. Yikes. Let me scroll down so you guys can see that a little bit more. Torian York at a 7.32 is concerning because we already know he is a physical outlier, and if he's just not able to change direction and he's not very fast, it's going to really hurt him. Heineke, Kelly, Obiezor kind of in that mix also. Kyle Lewis, just make him a slot. I mean, genuinely good number from him there. And then the last one we'll look at is the shuttle, which there were no competitors in the 20-yard shuttle. So that's going to do it for my day one combine overview. Would love to hear from you guys. Who do you think had the best showing? I mean, Sonny Styles is the easy answer, but who are some players that you were impressed by? Leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Adios.